Okay, you can start.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, hello everyone. My name's Alex, and I'm the director of Parentes. We're a very small family business. I normally conduct these presentations with my mother, who's the founder of the company, but she's unexpectedly out of the office today, so it's just me. It's a real pleasure to be speaking with all of you today. We'll be going pretty fast. We'll cover a lot of things, but rest assured you have access to everything that I'll mention the next 45 minutes or so on our website, which is freely accessible. You don't have to sign up for anything. And we're, again, a very small team. We're based here in Paris, in France, but we respond very quickly by email, by phone. So please do not hesitate to give us a quick call or send us an email after this presentation if you've missed anything. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. So the reason why we're here is I just want to talk to you about paid placements, contracts, internships in the United States. And the first thing you must know is that no matter what your nationality is, no matter how long you're going to be going to the US for, no matter if you're paid or not paid, even if you accept an unpaid placement of less than 90 days, you simply cannot go to the US with an ESTA or with a tourism visa, the B1, B2 visa. You have to go with the appropriate visa category, which we call a J1 intern or J1 trainee visa. Um, this is the same rule for everyone, again, no matter what nationality you're from, no matter what your passport is. The only exception, this may interest some of you, is if you'll be working in the field of anything that has to do with humanitarian work. And what I mean by that is not working from the offices of the United Nations or the Red Cross or whatever, but really be in the field. Now, that's one exception where you may do that with an ESTA or a tourism visa. But for everybody else, you have to go with a J1 visa. And I know that you hear the word visa in the United States in the same sentence, and all alarm bells go off. I'm sure you've heard horrible stories about getting visas to the US. Maybe people around you have discouraged you from accepting offers in the United States because of the visa processes and so on. It's true that there are some visas that are hard to obtain, namely H-1B visas or green cards. They're not impossible. They just take a lot of time, and yeah, it's true. They're a bit more complicated to obtain. But there are over 100 different categories of visas for the U.S. And of course, we cannot put 100 different visas in the same basket. There are visas that are extremely easy to obtain, namely the J1 intern or trainee visa. There are honestly no refusals of J1 visas at the embassy. I mean, for you to be refused a J1 visa application at the embassy, you must really have I mean, there must be a valid reason. You have to have a criminal record in the US, things like that. So they're honestly super easy to obtain. There is a caveat, however, and that is that you cannot go to the embassy in London and apply for a J1 visa on your own. The first thing they're going to ask you at the consulate is, who is your sponsor? Now, the sponsor is not your employer in the US. It is not family that you may have in the United States. It is not your university in the UK. It is a third-party organization that really has a contract with the US State Department, and that is legally allowed to issue all the paperwork needed for your J1 visa. So in order to obtain this visa, you must go through a sponsor. Now, we're at Parentes, one of the representatives here in Western Europe of one sponsor. We're not the only sponsor out there, so you may choose another sponsor, but you do need to have a sponsor in order to obtain your J1 visa. So in order to choose your sponsor, what you can do is simply go on the Bridge USA website, which is a website of the J1 programs for the US State Department. You have the URL here on the screen. You're going to click on intern because you're all students right now, and you'll have a list of sponsor organizations that can help you with your project in the US. On that list, however, you will not see the name of Parentes simply because we are a company based here in France. The sponsor is always an American organization based in the United States. So for us, if you decide to go through us, you'll be going through our partner called CIEE. They're based in the northeast of the US in the state of Maine, and we represent them again on all the countries you see on the screen. So the UK, of course, the French-speaking countries of Europe and Italy. We've decided to work with CIEE only simply because they are the oldest and one of the largest J1 visa sponsors in the US. They were set up in 1947. Initially, the purpose of these J1 visa programs was to bridge or just to facilitate cultural exchange between America and the countries that were at war during the Second World War here in Europe. Of course, these programs have evolved through the years, and since the J1 intern and trainee visa categories were put in place, CIE has brought in over 1 million J1 participants to the U.S. We've worked with them for well since 2004 now, and have helped over 35,000 people go to the U.S. If I'm giving you these numbers, it's not to impress you. It's just to let you know that if there are that many people that were able to go to the U.S. on these with these J1 visas, you can absolutely do that. It's a lot easier to put in place than what you might think. And my goal here today is really to reassure you on how easy it is to find a paid internship opportunity in the US and, of course, getting your visa. So please, for the next 40 minutes or so, forget everything you may have heard about J1 visas. We're going to start with a clean slate. And before we talk about finding an internship, I just want to talk about the role of the sponsor, because of course our job is not just to give you a piece of paper for you to get your visa. Sure, it is one of our main responsibilities, but we also do have other responsibilities that go beyond that. So one of the first things we have to do is to confirm that there is a cultural exchange component to your project in the US. Um, these programs, again, have first and foremost a cultural exchange component to them. The goal is really to go to the US and see how professional life works in the US, learn from US business practices. So, as British students, of course, it's totally fine to go work for a company or a British company based in the United States. That is perfectly legal, but we still want to make sure that you'll have access to American colleagues, American clients. Again, the goal is not to really replicate what you could do in the UK. We really want you to go and be immersed in real American professional life. Secondly, we will be vetting your application. Now, the application is in two parts, one for you and one for your employer in the US, which we call the training plan, or also the DS7002, as we call it, and ensure that these documents are perfectly compliant so that there are no issues at the embassy when you go for your visa interview. We will also conduct a site visit if necessary. Now, say you go work for, I don't know, Tesla in the US or another huge multinational company. We're not going to do a site visit. We know these companies are perfectly legitimate. They take interns every year. But if you find a small startup company in, say, Miami, and they've never hosted international students before or have never used J1 visas, what CIA will do is take the time to talk to your employer, check that their office actually exists, that you'll have a workspace that's dedicated to you with a working laptop or computer and so on. We just want to make sure you're going to go to the US and join a company that is legitimate, serious. We just don't want you to go to the other side of the planet to find yourself in a difficult situation with an employer that might be, or a business that might go under soon, and that kind of thing. So we'll do that. And we will also give you access to a 24/7 support system in the US. So if you have any questions, whether they be with your, I don't know, how to obtain a social security number in the US, or you don't know how to go about renting I don't know, renting a car, an apartment, you have issues with your internship, with your employer, you really do have someone to talk to 24/7, and that can help you out. And lastly, one of our key or main responsibilities is also to provide health insurance that must cover you during the entire stay in the US. So we'll give you, of course, all those details, but you will be insured up to $1 million for your health fees. That may seem over the top to you guys, but trust me, health fees in the US have nothing to do with what you pay in Europe. Um, Unfortunately, if you ever have an accident or need to be hospitalized for a few days, your invoice can go way up. So just be careful about that. CIE is the only sponsor that will insure you up to $1 million. A lot of other sponsors will only insure you up to 100,000 or $200,000, which may seem enough if you're going for 3, 4 months in the US. But again, just be careful about that. And you have all the details of our insurance on our website if you wish to look at those in more detail. Now, step one of your project is to make sure that you are eligible for these visas. There are websites that encourage you to take a test, an eligibility test. You don't need to do that. You're all here today. You're all enrolled in a university in Europe. Therefore, you are eligible, no matter what your nationality is. You have all the details on our website once again if you really want to take a closer look at those. But all you have to know is that you must be 18 years old or above. There is no restriction. I mean, we had a participant just a few months ago that was almost 50 years old, so plenty of time to leave to the US for you guys. And one thing you must know is that the internship must have a direct correlation with your field of study. So if you're studying architecture, you need to go in that field. You cannot go to the US with a J1 intern visa and work in I don't know, marketing or in the restaurant business. So that's important. You also need to accept a full-time offer only. What we mean by that is at least 32 hours a week. And just know that you can apply for these visas as many times as you wish throughout your life. So as long as you're eligible, you may go back a second, third, or fourth time. Sometimes we have seen. Now, be careful about the eligibility criteria for host companies in the US. You are all eligible. We just saw that, but sometimes we need to refuse applications because the employer that you found does not qualify. Um, Again, CIE is quite flexible compared to other sponsors, and we can accept virtually any kind of employer, but there are a few restrictions or a few eligibility criteria. You have them on our screen, on the screen here and on our website. The most important things is that they need to have a real office. Again, remote work is fine, but only up to 2 days a week. The majority of your time needs to be spent working from a physical office. We want you to be interacting with your manager on site, with American colleagues, clients. That again is the goal of these visa programs. They also need to have what we call a workers' compensation policy. That's pretty easy to obtain, but just so you know, again, you have those details on our website. So please take a look at them before you accept an offer. Now, you do have two options to go train or work in the US, and it is with a J1 intern or J1 trainee visa. We can assist you with both. If you are currently a student or at least a recent graduate of less than 12 months at the time of departure, then you qualify for a J1 intern visa, which will allow you to work for a maximum of 12 months in the US. But if you've already graduated, so say you're in your final year of study, and you're not considering going to the US until a couple years from now, know that we can still help you out with a J1 trainee visa. It is essentially the same thing as the intern visa, but it allows you to train for up to 18 months maximum versus 12. In addition to your diploma, we want to see at least 12 months of professional experience relevant to what you'll be doing in the US. So again, keep that in mind. And if in a few years you still want to go to the US, a J1 is still available to you. Now, step two, now that we've confirmed that you were all eligible for these visas, is for you to find your employer. There is no need to start an application with the sponsor until you have secured your placement, until you've at least verbally agreed to an offer with an American employer. And before you start applying and sending resumes left and right, please take a good weekend at least to work on the three documents that you see on the screen. Your resume or your CV, a cover letter that needs to be specific to the US. There are things that vary between what you will typically write as a British national or if you were looking in Europe and if you're looking in the US. And your LinkedIn profile. We're going to take a look at them one by one very quickly. The CV, which we call resume in the US, technically there cannot be a photo or any kind of personal information. You cannot disclose your age, your date of birth, your family situation. This is done for discrimination purposes. The employer is technically supposed to give you an interview no matter the color of your skin, your hair, your weight, and so on. So I'm not sure about the UK, but here in France, Belgium, Italy, a lot of people will put a photo of themselves on their CV. Please don't do that. We're not saying that if you do, you'll never get to the stage of an interview with an employer, but those are typical guidelines that some companies are very strict about, some are not. So since you don't know the internal policies of each company you'll be writing to, please don't take the risk. Remove your photo. Really, the only thing that should appear is your full name and your nationality. That's it. Make your CV clickable. Make sure that the employer can click on the name of your school, of your university, and be directed to the program you're enrolled in. Make sure they can click on your LinkedIn URL or name, and they can see your profile, names of your past employers. You really want to make life easy for them. Just remember that you're writing to someone that's on the other side of the world that maybe has never heard of your university. If you were finding or looking for jobs in the UK, of course, you give them the name of your university, the name of the master's program you're enrolled in, for example. They'll situate you pretty quickly. They'll know a little bit more about your background. Again, that might not be the case if you're writing to someone that's in New York or California. So make sure to give them a lot more information and explain a lot more than if you were looking in Europe. Share maybe the ranking of your school in your home country, things like that. Typically, resumes need to be on one page only in the US. I know that's not necessarily the case in other countries, so try to play with the format to again make it. We like things to be short and sweet and go straight to the point, basically. So make it, clean and short. And it's important to keep things in a chronological order with your past experiences, for example. Yeah, just try to put yourself in the shoes of the person that will be reading your resume. Make sure to send a resume in a PDF format only, of course. It gets pretty messy with Word. And the most important thing on this slide is the sentence that you see highlighted in green. J1 visa candidate does not need a sponsor. This sentence you want to copy and paste and put it somewhere in bold, very visible on top of your resume. This is the first thing. I mean, it should pop out somewhere. The employer should see that immediately upon receiving your application in their inbox. And I'm going to explain to you why that is so important in the US. And lastly, your resume is the first impression you give to your potential employers. They'll know immediately if you just spent 2 minutes on it or if it's something you really took the care or took care of writing. So make it look professional, please. Do take the time, write it, make it read by other people around you. It needs to be flawless. There cannot be typos. It is again important. It's the first impression you'll give to your employers. Now, the cover letter, there is, I have bad news for you, and this that if you do have an example, you're going to put it away. It is not the cover letter you'll be using for the US. The good news, however, is that we do have an example. So we've done the work for you. It is freely accessible on our website. You're going to click on cover letter internship, and this is what your first email or your cover letter to an employer in the US should look like. You see some paragraphs in bold. Those you're going to copy and paste without changing a single word. So we've really done all the work for you. Of course, the first paragraph you are going to adapt to your case. I know you're not all French students in marketing, but try to keep it brief again. Just say that you're a university student in Lancaster, that you're looking for an internship from this date to that date. And that's pretty much it. There doesn't need to be a novel. The most important thing here are the paragraphs in bold. And these paragraphs are basically explaining to your employer the legal feasibility of your stay in the US, the legal framework in which you'll be arriving, and the only goal of this letter is really to reassure your employers as to your legal presence in the US. So we're going to look at those paragraphs in bold. Basically, what you're saying is that if they're interested in hiring you, you will be arriving with a J1 visa in hand that is sponsored by CIEE, and you give them the link of the sponsor. So in between the lines, what you're telling your employer or potential employer is that they don't need to contact an immigration lawyer or to deal with USCIS. You'll be arriving with your visa. They have nothing to do. They can hire you. They can pay you legally. You keep on by telling them that in your program are included your full health insurance. So that is, of course, a lot of savings for the employer. They don't have to extend their health benefits and package to you. You'll have your own health insurance. Just so you know, health insurance in the US is very expensive. So you are saving them money, hassle, paperwork. it is a real plus that you have as a foreigner arriving with a J1 visa. On top of that, J1 visa holders are exempt from a couple of taxes, namely the Social Security tax and the federal unemployment tax. The employer is too. So once again, really you are costing them less than if they were interested in hiring an American employee. You're obviously not going to say that in those terms. It is very politically incorrect, but it's true, and the employer will really understand that by reading this letter. So please, again, mention that somewhere in your cover letter. Lastly, you're just telling them that they'll be contributing to the U.S. Public diplomacy efforts. That may be interesting to some not, but it doesn't cost anything to mention it. It's a little plus. Some employers like to put that forward in their community. And once again, I know this letter is not people don't like it because you're not talking about yourself. You're not talking about what makes you the better candidate for the position. But trust me, all this will come later on during the interview process, typically. Put yourself in the shoes of the employer reading your application, looking through your resume, your cover letter. They may think you're a very interesting candidate, but the first question they'll have is, oh, like this person's from abroad. How am I going to get them to the US legally? I don't want to go and pay an immigration attorney tens of thousands of dollars or go contact the US government. This is too complicated. Next candidate. So if you don't tell them that, you'll never get to the stage of where you can talk about yourself. And again, that will happen during the interview. So please use this letter. If you're sending spontaneous applications, we want you to copy the letter in the body of the email and just put your CV as an attachment. That's really all you have to do. Lastly, your LinkedIn profile. I'm not sure if you all have one, but if you don't, I know it's a bit annoying, but it will really help you. It's a very effective tool for finding your internship in the US. So please do take a weekend to work on your resume. And again, if you're looking for internship opportunities in the US, do copy and paste that sentence. J1 visa candidate will not require a visa sponsorship or visa sponsor, and make sure to follow the employers that you're interested in. It's a great tool. We'll cover that in a few slides. Now, once you've done that, this is when you can really start applying to offers online. And every year at Parentes, we assist about 2,500 participants and have done so for almost 20 years now, over 20 years actually. And the vast majority of them find their employers on by themselves using their university, using us, using some of the websites I'm going to show you in the next few slides. Only a small minority, less than 3% last year, use what we call paid placement services. Now you're perfectly and legally allowed to go pay a company to find you your employer or to put you in touch with employers. We personally think it's a waste of money. You can definitely find great and paid opportunities on your own. And this is what we're going to cover now. So please use all the resources that are freely at your disposal. Talk to people in your at your university. Just and start by using search engines. So the websites that you see on the screen, websites like Indeed, that I'm sure you're familiar with, or Glassdoor, they're a good first place to start simply because you can play with the keywords and see what kind of employers are out there, what kind of offers you can expect, the salaries you may expect as an intern in the United States. Social media platforms like Indeed, LinkedIn, of course, but also Facebook. There's a lot of J1 visa related Facebook groups. Those can also lead to professional opportunities in the US. So keep an open mind and try to have a look at those. But I'm going to walk you through the steps of applying using a couple of these websites today. And the first one is called Glassdoor. This is a homepage, and as you can see, there's a couple of search bars, which you will be adapting to your situation. Again, I know you're not all in marketing, but I chose the keyword marketing internship, and the second search bar is asking me where I want to work. Now, I perfectly understand if you want to go to New York or San Francisco. It seems like they're the two cities that come up the most when people contact us and ask for help with finding internships. I just want to take the time to remind everyone that the US is a huge country with millions of employers, and sometimes they're based in cities you would have never considered, but where you could have fantastic cultural, personal and professional opportunities, and where sometimes life is also cheaper than life in San Francisco or New York, where things tend to be very expensive. So try to put a more vague keyword like United States. Anyway, I clicked on search and I found over 2,000 results. All the internship offers that match your search criteria will be on the left-hand side of the screen. And if you click on one of them, then you'll find more information on the qualifications required, the salary, the job description, of course, and so on. So I just had a quick look and found this internship at General Mills in Minnesota. And let's pretend for a second that this is something that we're interested in. What I recommend you do before you even apply is to make sure that that company pays their interns. Um, Internships in the US tend to be a lot better paid than internships in Europe, generally speaking. As you can see here on the salaries tab of Glassdoor, a marketing intern at General Mills usually makes at least $50,000, $56,000 a year. That might seem too good to be true. I know that at least here in France, where we're based, you would never, as a second or third year student, find an internship that's paid around 50,000 a year. But trust me, those are the figures that we see every day at the office. And one of the reasons why internships tend to be better paid in the US than they are here in Europe is that life in the US is also a lot more expensive than life in the UK or in France. I recommend you use the website that you see on the screen. That's called Expatistan, and it is a basically a cost of living comparison tool between a couple of cities and countries. Now, I put in United States and United Kingdom. It says it's about the same, just a 1% difference. But do look at the category called housing. You can see it's already more expensive. Honestly, cities like New York and San Francisco will be a lot more expensive to live in than Lancaster or anywhere in Northern England. So please take that into account before you accept an offer. You're free to accept whatever salary you want, even unpaid experiences if you want to. We strongly discourage you from doing that, but it is legally feasible. But we just don't want you to accept something that looks good with your foreign references, only to find yourself in, say, New York and realize that, $2,500 a month is barely enough to cover your rent and food. So do your budget, make sure you know what kind of offers you can accept, what kind of offers you have to decline. And once you've done that, this is where you can apply. And also, Expatistan, sorry, is very well done. It's a very intuitive website. So you can play around with the different categories you see on the screen, check the cost of a gallon of gas or petrol compared to your country, and really do your budget. So again, please use it. But again, once you've done that, you can apply. You're going to click on apply. You'll be redirected to the company's careers page, on which you'll follow the instructions on the screen to send your application through. This should take you a second. You'll have to create an account with a login and password and so on. You all know how to do that. Here on General Mills' website, all I had to do was upload a resume. The cover letter was optional. Now, if it is optional, please do include the model I showed you, the template I showed you. And again, it took me a second. I just had to fill in those few fields that you see on the screen, and that's it. However, there are two trick questions that you'll see every single time you apply for jobs in the US, no matter what level you're at. And the first one is this one. It's asking you here if you are legally allowed to work in the US. Please answer that you are. I know that no one listening to me today has their visa in hand. Of course, that's perfectly normal. You first need to find and secure your internship before you start the application process for your J1 visa with a sponsor. And what you're doing here by answering yes is simply reassuring the employer, just as I was saying about the cover letter template I showed you, on the fact that you will be arriving with a visa and therefore will be legally allowed to work in the US. If you answer no to that question, your application will be dismissed immediately. Basically, the question is here for the employer to filter out applications from candidates that may require legal assistance to obtain a work permit in the US. It is not your case. You will all have your J1 visa through us as a sponsor if you decide to go through us, or through the sponsor of your choice. But you have to answer yes. And I cannot emphasize on this enough. It's really important. You'll see those questions every time. Now, I just went to LinkedIn, which is another great research tool, as I was explaining earlier on. A lot of our participants tell us that they find their internships through LinkedIn, which is why it's so important to really spend a good weekend working on your profile. Make sure you're that it's as detailed as possible. And it's also a good tool to be able to follow up on applications. You can through the message tab of LinkedIn, you can also message HR departments from such and such company and really follow up after you send an application. So anyway, once you've done all that, you can click on the jobs tab. You'll find the same two search bars that again you'll adapt to what you're interested in. Just for a change, I put in sustainable development internship in the U.S. still, but you can enter the city of your choice. And there were over 1,300 results that came up very quickly. Saw one that looked interesting for the spring of 2025 at Warner Brothers. So again, make sure you go to Glassdoor to make sure that the employer typically pays their interns. Once again, it is the case here at 42,000 a year, and then you can apply through LinkedIn. Same process. And honestly, there's no need for you to adapt your resume or your cover letter to each company you're writing to. As a foreign national right now, the most important thing is for you to reassure the employer on the fact that you will have your visa and you already have your sponsor. Everything else will come in later on during the interview. Now, the probably the most efficient way to find your own internship in the US is to send a spontaneous application to the company you're interested in. So just go to Google and type in the keywords. Here I put in IBM finance internships for a change again, but you can put whatever you want. And make sure you go to the American page of the website, especially if you're targeting these multinational companies. Make sure you go to the .com, not the .co.uk website, or search for a tab that says US. Once you're on their website, you're going to have to look for a tab that typically is called careers, join us, contact us, or simply the email address of the HR department to whom you can write with your resume as an attachment and the cover letter in the body of the email, as I showed you earlier. Here on IBM's website, it was super straightforward. There was a tab for internships. So I just clicked on one random offer in finance for 6 months. You have all the details about the job here, the qualifications required for the position, the projected minimum salary, as you can see, is very high, which is usually the case for people in finance. And here, just to show you, the only required or the qualifications required were that you had a high school diploma and that you were currently studying and enrolled in at least a bachelor's program. So I'm pretty sure everybody here listening to me today can apply to this offer. So I just clicked on apply. I had to log in or create an account, upload my resume. It took me a second. And the same trick questions came up. Now, the first one we saw, you are all legally authorized to work in the US, of course. The second question you'll be seeing a lot is, will you now or in the future require a sponsor? Please answer no. IBM will not be your sponsor. Your employer will not sponsor you. You have to reassure them on the fact that it is a separate company, a separate entity organization, such as ours, and our partner CIE, and that they don't have to do anything to sponsor your visa. In fact, on this job description, the first line was, I'm not sure if you can read it here on the screen, but it says IBM is unable to provide visa sponsorship for this position now or in the future. So you'll see that every time. Once again, please make sure you're answering correctly. And follow up with your employers. Again, make sure you're uh, sending them a new message every week. It's really the only way for you to get an interview. So don't be shy. It's a common practice. We expect that from you. It also shows that you're motivated, and that's important to an American employer. Make sure you're looking at your spam folder also. Sometimes HR departments can write back to you very quickly and you just miss out on their response because it came from an automated email address. You want to make sure you're answering quickly to your employers. If they reach out to you to schedule a time to talk and have an interview with you, uh, please really make sure you answer quickly. It shows that you're available, you're motivated, you want to work for them, you're enthusiastic about the idea of going to the US. Those things are really honestly super important in the eyes of an American recruiter. And make sure, I mean, you'll see the tone of the interview in the US is a lot different, a lot less formal typically than what we have here in Europe. It's true that Americans tend to be a lot more, I don't know, like laid back, casual, even in the professional context. So don't be shocked by that, but it's true that the interview is a lot more like a friendly conversation, a real yeah, dialogue you can have with a friend, honestly. Now remember that you are talking with a potential employer, not your best friend, but it's true we want to see your smile, an outgoing type of personality. We expect questions from you, so really make sure you communicate a lot during that interview. Put yourself in the shoes of the employer. Of course, they want to make sure you're qualified for the job, but also that you're someone that will be a good fit with the rest of their team on site, with the company's culture, and so on. And one thing that is required in the US, we really expect that from you, is a thank you email after each interview. We're not asking you to send a novel, but just drop them a couple of lines to say, I really appreciate discussing such and such. Looking forward to hearing back from you. This will go a long way. If you don't take a second to do that, the employer will think, well, fantastic candidate, different from what I'm seeing every day with American candidates, but not very professional. That may impact their decision, influence their decision if it's time to pick between a couple of candidates. Lastly, we are here to help. We are not a placement agency, but we can definitely assist you in your employer search too. We've been doing this for 20 years now and have quite the network of employers, recurring employers, people or companies that hire with us every year. And if you don't know where to start, just send us a quick email with your resume um, and your cover letter. We'll gladly take a look at them. And once we've made sure that those were, compliant to the American style of writing a resume, we'll be happy to share with you a list of companies who have hosted not only students from your school, but also from other partner universities in your field of study, of course. We do that completely for free. It doesn't engage you to Parentez in any way, shape, or form. It's really only once you have accepted an offer that you can come back to us for step number three of this project. And step number three will be for you to fill out the online application. So you're just going to send us an email saying that you've accepted an offer from this date to that date, and we'll give you access, sorry, to an online application portal. Again, the application is in two parts, one for you, which will take you a second. Honestly, we don't ask for cover letters, for reference letters, I mean, for official translations or any sort of annex documents, past contracts, and so on. All we want is a school letter that says you are currently enrolled in for the academic year 24, 25, and a copy of your passport. That's it. And then it's going to be up to you to invite your host company in the US to fill out their part of the application, which we again call the training plan, and also should not take them more than half an hour of their time. All they have to do is answer 7 questions explaining what you'll be working on, who your manager will be, what you'll be developing in terms of skills through this internship. It really takes a second. Uh, from the moment that you open your application with us, it takes around 15 business days, so about 3 weeks, for you to receive what we call the DS 2019. It is with that form that you can then schedule your embassy appointment. There are faster options, as you can see on the screen, but they are more costly, of course, so we don't encourage you to wait until the last minute. Try to give yourself at least those 15 business days before you schedule your embassy appointment. And that will be step number 4. During that time, we'll be vetting your application and we will issue your DS319, which you'll use to schedule your interview at the embassy. In the UK, the only embassy issuing visas is the one in London. So you'll have to go to travel to London, and the timeframes are typically around a few days. Honestly, it takes 3 to 4 days to get an interview at the moment. They'll be asking you a couple of questions, checking the forms that we'll hand to you by then. And the questions you see on the screen, they typically just want to make sure that you've chosen the right visa category for what you'll be doing in the US. So they'll want to know why you're applying for a visa. Quite simply, and they'll want to make sure that you understood that at the end of your internship, you will have to leave the U.S. So typically, they'll ask you what are your plans at the end of this, at the expiration of your visa, at the end of your internship. Make sure here that you answer that you'll be returning home. That's super important. And then you'll leave the embassy with this little piece of paper saying your visa is approved and that you'll be receiving it within, typically it's 2 business days if you go pick it up in person in London, or you can also choose to have it sent back to you by mail, which will take an extra couple of days as well. So all in all, from the moment you open your application to the moment you really have your visa in hand, ready to leave, you should count on approximately 4 weeks. Um, just to give you a reference, for Canada, it's typically at least 8 weeks. So this is a lot easier than certain other countries. And it's really not that long. And again, this is on average, it can go even faster in some cases. But please allow yourself to have 4 extra weeks before you leave. Now, before talking about your budget a little bit more, just want to remind you that we only work with one sponsor. Therefore, we only have one fee schedule, and it's very transparently posted on our website. And keep in mind that for those of you that will be leaving on the intern or trainee visa programs, the fees are typically covered by the company. It is absolutely not a legal obligation for them as a company in the US to pay for your sponsor fees. But we see that a lot. We honestly don't have a single day in the office where we don't invoice the company in the US directly. So keep that in mind before you accept an offer. What I recommend you do is write to your employer and say, I'm super happy about this offer. I'm going to start the application process with my sponsor immediately. But before I do so, I just want to remind you that as a foreign national, I do have sponsor fees that include my visa, my insurance. Are you willing to contribute to those fees? They can say yes, they can say no, they can say we'll do 50-50. We've seen it all here, but again, it's pretty common, so don't be shy about asking that question. Money is not a taboo subject in the US. So the fees for the intern visa program you see on the screen, they vary based on the length of your stay in the US, simply because they include the support system and the insurance. So if you go for 1 month, it's obviously cheaper to cover you with our health insurance than if you were going for 12. You see it goes all the way to 14 months simply because you can arrive up to 30 days prior to your first day of work in the US, and you can also stay up to 30 days after the end of your internship. You cannot work during those two, we call them grace periods, those two 30-day periods before and after your internship. Those are just to get settled before you start working, and also maybe potentially do a road trip at the end of your internship. And you can choose to be insured also during those few months. So that's why it goes up to 14 months. The program fees that I mentioned, they include all the paperwork needed for your visa application, of course, our vetting work, the work of CIE, your full insurance, a site visit, the support system on site. Really, the only thing you should be adding to those fees are the U.S. Embassy fee that you'll pay at the very end of the process. Uh, that's really for the visa itself. So it costs 185 US dollars, which with the current exchange rate is approximately 145 British pounds. Um, so we've done a budget for you. If you were going for 6 months, for example, you're looking at around 2025 euros, which is about 1,690 pounds. And I know this may seem like a lot, but again, it is very common for the employer to be paying those fees for you. Sometimes we also see companies pay for your flights to the US, assist you with your housing the first couple of weeks, things like that. Everything is really negotiable. And we've also looked at the salary, as I showed you. An average salary for someone who's an undergrad student, a first, second year bachelor's program student, is around $1,500 a month. If you're already in your master's degree, or if you've already graduated, honestly, we see salaries of $4,000 or $5,000 a month every day here at Parentes. So again, if you leave for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, you can really make this not necessarily profitable, but you should definitely be covering the initial expenses that you will have as a foreigner with your visa fees, your sponsor fees, your plane ticket, and so on. And I'm not saying that unpaid internships don't exist in the US. Of course they do, just as they do everywhere. But please forget that idea that at least we have here in France of, oh, I'm a student, so therefore I cannot be paid, or I can only be paid a third of minimum wage, or things like that. It is far from being the norm in the US. Even as a first year student, sorry, going as an intern to the US, you can be very well paid. And yeah, we really encourage you to accept paid offers only. Just a quick recap, step by step. So the first thing you have to do is find for your employer, find an internship, sorry. You can contact us at any time. So if you need help, feel free to reach out to us. We'll help you as much as we can. You may use the website that I showed you and only contact us once you have secured your internship. It's really up to you. But once you've secured your employer, that's when you can reach out to us to open the application form with us. We will, of course, verify it. We'll send it then to CIE, who will also do the final vetting, and they'll issue your DS 2019, which you'll need to schedule your US visa interview at the consulate in London. You'll go to London, get your visa within 48 hours. And last step is for you to book your ticket. We do have a partner. They're based in France, but we recommend that you reach out to them for a quote. They're a very small agency. They only issue a modifiable, refundable ticket. If you really want to buy the cheapest airline ticket on Expedia or Skyscanner or whatever, please wait until you have your visa in hand, that you've checked that all the information printed on the visa matches your passport and everything is correct. This is only when you can buy a non-modifiable ticket. If you do make any travel reservation before that, please make it refundable, modifiable, simply because you never know. Things can happen. This project involves three separate entities that don't have any control. I mean, I don't have any control on the embassy in London or on CIE as a sponsor. So things happen. First, your application has to go through us, then with CIE, and then with the US Embassy. And things might look good on paper to us, but maybe CIE will say, well, we've conducted the site visit and this employer does not qualify. Or maybe CIE has issued your DS 2019. You try to book an embassy appointment in London, and maybe they're, fully booked around the time where you have to leave. So it'll take an extra few days. Those things happen. So we really recommend you keep some flexibility. Again, this is not a tourism project. And yeah, please make your reservations modifiable if you want to purchase your airline ticket at the beginning. Now, very quickly, before we finish this presentation, we have a separate program that we can assist you with called the Work and Travel USA program. This is still J1 visa, but we're not talking about internships in law, business, sciences, and so on. These are small seasonal jobs, really summer jobs. You can work in typically the hospitality or tourism business. If your goal is simply to go to the US to gain that sort of cultural experience and maybe a first professional experience, you can also leave with this J1 visa. All you have to know is that you have to be between 18 and 30 years old and be a current student or a graduate of less than 30 days. So if you're in your final year, you can still go on this program, but only within the month after you finish your studies. You have to work a minimum of 32 hours a week again, and you can work a maximum of 4 months only between June 1st and September 30th. Those are the dates that the U.S. Department chose for the summer jobs for UK students. Same process. You first need to find your summer job and then open the application with us. I'm not going to go over this in too great detail right now, but if you're interested, just know we can help you out. We have a few websites we recommend, namely this one called CoolWorks, but we also can help you. We usually have leads. It's a bit early to talk about the summer season for next year, but if you're interested, again, give us a quick call or send us an email, maybe by December, and we'll be able to assist you. But you can work in these fantastic places, typically in national parks, amusement parks, restaurants, hotels. It can be a great summer if you want to leave with a group of friends. The program fees you see on the screen, it's a flat rate. So no matter how long you go for, you're looking at 1,210 pounds, to which you add the visa fees again. So it's usually around 1,355 pounds. And the employers will typically offer housing. So again, those employers that work in hospitality, they're used to hosting summer or students on summer jobs every year during their busy season. So that removes a bit of that logistical aspect of your trip. And yeah, that's it for us. So if you have any questions, we can take them now. But otherwise, thank you so much for logging in today. And yeah, just know that we're a very small company. We respond quickly. I know I went very quickly today, uh, but yeah, we'll be happy to help you after this. So, do you have any questions?
Thank you. That was fantastic and lots of information, I think,
Yeah.
for the students to process. And this, just to let everybody know, this has been recorded, so we will share this on Moodle and on our other platforms, so you can access and go back if you think you've missed anything. But we do have a question from one of our students that's asking if, for an internship, is the candidate responsible for finding housing?
Yeah, so what we see is that a lot of companies will only help you out sometimes, not always, but that's probably the best you can expect with housing the first week or so upon your arrival, but it is usually your responsibility to find housing. Now, again, for the work and travel program, usually it's the employer that will provide housing. For the internship, the more professional type of program, it will be up to you to find your housing in the US, but trust me, it is a lot easier to find than it is here in Europe. I speak of experience. I've moved between France and the US and the UK quite a few times throughout my life, and I swear that you will find housing in the US within 2 to 3 days. There are places that are expensive, namely New York, San Francisco. Those big cities can be expensive, but it is very easy to find something. What I recommend you do is you book an Airbnb or a hotel for a week or so upon arrival just to get settled and really go check places on site. Please do not send money, do not pay for the first month of rent from the UK. A, because you don't know what the place, I mean, online you can put photos of any photo you want, but you want to make sure that in the US you're going to be in a safe type of neighborhood. So wait until you're on site, wait until you've actually seen your accommodation before you book and pay anyone. Also ask your employer. They obviously know the city in which they're based. They can maybe help you out. Maybe they have a few leads, a few contacts of agencies. That you can then contact. And otherwise, on our website, we do have a couple of links, namely in New York. There's one website especially called Aya that's really well done. They're not all partners of ours, but just websites that our participants have recommended to us. So yeah, you can have a look. It's under the housing section of our website, or just send us an email. We'll happily share the link with you. But otherwise, yeah, I know it's stressful to go to a different country and not have housing, bank account, phone, all those things set up already. But trust me, in the US, it is very easy to put those things in place, and you'll do that upon arrival only. So, yeah, just book a hotel that first week and you'll find it. I promise you. Honestly, in 20 years, we have never had someone call us from the US saying, well, I've arrived 2 weeks ago and I cannot find accommodations. So you'll get there too. I see the second question from Michelle is what is the minimum length of the internship? So technically, it's about 3 weeks. So we can accept a J1 visa application for 3 weeks. Now, personally, I don't recommend you go to the US for only a month. Again, you're free to do so, but I find it to be a lot of money and a lot of admin work for just a month. If you're not available for more than a couple of months, I recommend you maybe look and consider the work and travel program, where again, employers will provide housing. Um, Most of the time, at least, room and board is included in those offers. So that might be easier. But finding an internship in, I don't know, business or law in New York for just 3 weeks to a month, it goes by very quickly. So again, you are free to accept those. Um, as long as it's 3 weeks or more, we'll happily work with you. But yeah, it's more interesting, I'd say, if you go for at least 2, 3 months. Another question, as a student, would it be possible to work just for the summer, back in time for September studies back at the Yes, of course. And that applies to both intern or the summer work and travel program. So, yeah, of course, with the work and travel program, you can have a summer job just between June 1st and August, whatever, 31st, and be back in the UK for September. You can absolutely find a 3-month internship or a 2-month internship during the summer as well. That's more related to your field of study if you're interested in that. Um, and for all of you, just send us an email, say I'm a student in such and such field. I'm looking at opportunities for this summer, whether a summer job or an internship, and send us your resume. We'll take the time to look at that on a case-by-case basis and help you out as much as we can too. Was that it, Nolene, for the questions, or did I miss one? Yeah, no, it looks like. Any other questions?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Just a quick one. If a
Yeah.
student wanted to do a year placement, so they wanted to go to um, America to do a year work in industry, would that be possible as well on the J1 visa?
Yes, absolutely. And even after they finish their studies, it's still a visa that can apply to or that you can consider. We have a lot of candidates, more and more actually, that are absolutely no longer students, but they just use the visa, the J1 visa. You should basically consider it as a 1 year fixed work contract, basically.
Brilliant.
It doesn't necessarily have to be an internship the way we understand that word here in Europe.
Hmm.
Um, there is still a component of learning professional growth that's important with
Hmm.
this visa. The goal is really still for a foreigner to see what American professional life is all about. It's for them to see, well, to join an American company or American-based company
Hmm.
and really learn new skills or develop at least their
Yeah,
professional skills with the goal in mind of then coming back to their country and applying those skills to their future career back home and that sort of thing. So that's the idea behind those J1 visas. But it is absolutely doable for a year placement. Yes,
and
100%.
can a student apply for J1 visa from the UK if they're from another country? So if they're
Yeah,
an overseas student studying in the UK, they can apply from the UK.
absolutely, yeah. All nationalities are eligible. That's I can confirm that to you 100%. But then, of course, even as a foreign student in the UK, we're happy to take your application, and you can apply for your visa in London. You don't necessarily have to go back home to your home country. Now, what they do want to see at the embassy is proofs of ties to the country in which you're applying. So here, what I recommend you do is if you have a visa for the UK, a student visa, take that with you. Make sure you also bring a document from your university saying that you are a current student in the UK, which is why you're applying here in England.
Hmm.
But other than that, there's no issues. We have foreign students all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can
Yeah.
get that document from student services or from your department just to confirm you're a student.
Yeah.
And I think there's one last question. So I think the answer to this will be no. Can you repeat internships on the J1 visa? So go for summer of first year and then the summer of your third year for an
Oh, you can
internship.
you can, and actually the record I think
Oh,
is around 6 times in a row. So
wow.
you may absolutely do a summer job in your first year of study, and then do a 6 month internship in your second one, and then go back. Now there are sometimes hiatus periods that you have to respect. So between a couple of back-to-back internships with a J1 intern visa, you do have to wait at least 90 days if you're going to be returning to the same company. If you switch to a different company, however, there is no hiatus, and you may
All right.
repeat this as many times as you want. Obviously, you will need to leave the U.S. at the expiration date of your first visa, come back home to apply for the second visa, and then go back. But yes, you absolutely can do a first and then third year summer internship. That's
Brilliant. Yeah, so
far
that
from
is
being
two
a
set.
problem.
You would need
Yeah.
two separate visas for that
You
then. That
you
would
do,
be,
however,
yeah.
need a separate
Yeah.
visa each time. The visa is really linked to the entity hosting you in the U.S. So if you're doing a
Brill.
a semester abroad in the U.S., your first visa will be linked to that university that's hosting you for that semester. If you find then a summer job, it'll be that employer for the summer. And if it's an internship, it's going to be a new visa linked to that employer, and so on and so on. So yeah, unfortunately, you cannot have multiple visas valid at once in your passport. You will have to every time leave the US and come back, but otherwise it is perfectly feasible. And with us, the whole application process is done online, so you can do that from wherever. But the very last step of you going to the embassy obviously will be uh, you'll need to do that from physically from the UK. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. That's all the questions. I think everyone's very happy with that. Thank
All
you for
right.
your
Thank
time
you,
today,
everyone.
Alexander. It was
Of
really, really
course.
interesting.
No, my
Um,
pleasure. And sorry we
yeah,
couldn't make it in person this time, but maybe next year.
no, it's great. I mean, it opens doors for students to look at other opportunities elsewhere in the
Yeah.
world as well to get that work experience and build their CV. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for doing that. And thanks everyone for attending. Have a great day. Thank
Thank you
you.
all. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye. Bye, Noe. Thanks.